Yeah, well, you never know. I mean, but yeah, right now. Okay. And it's been going on almost an hour and a half now, Steve and Lisa. We are now in Redondo Beach. So the third of the beach cities has been covered by this pursuit. And this carjacking suspect is now traveling southbound on Catalina Avenue by King Harbor here, still driving at a relatively slow speed, making his way through intersections. Now it looks like he's choosing to almost slow down altogether. We're unclear if he's encountered another spike strip, but this is the slowest he has gone in some time here. Again, this is right up against the coast in the beach cities. We have Redondo Beach on the south side of the South Bay, Hermosa Beach, and then Manhattan Beach. And he came from LAX here. And Catalina, you could see the traffic pretty much non-existent on the southbound side here. He'll be approaching the pier. Why he's choosing to slow down, unclear. But now we can see some other motors coming up behind him, which is a bit of a surprise, and that officers aren't trailing him a little bit closer. It was the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department that was the lead agency on this pursuit. But that's normal traffic speed there, whizzing by him on Catalina Avenue, the southbound side of Catalina, and he's going at a really low rate of speed.
And again, just to remind our viewers that who are just joining us and didn't see us covering this guy earlier, there was a carjacking at 68 and Central in South Los Angeles. That's where it began an hour and a half ago. How many miles would you say he's gone?
Easily 30 miles now, 35 miles, I would say. A lot of this has been slow speed, so through the beach cities here, he hasn't really covered that much real estate. Just making his way southbound from El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, then into Hermosa, we saw him, and also now into Redondo Beach. At the stoplight.
Yes, this is different behavior now. He is really stopping. Through the whole stoplight. Earlier, he would stop and keep going, and now where's he going?
Would he be out of gas?
Mid-intersection here. This is at the corner of Garnet and Catalina,
myself,
possibly. He could be out of gas. Now it looks like officers are trailing behind him, holding traffic just to see what his next move is going to be. And it looks like he's going to make his way left, which would take him right in front of traffic there, too. And that traffic probably doesn't know what's happening because all the officers are on the other side of the street. You can see some people checking it out on the sidewalk there. This is Garnet Street, a smaller east-west street here in Redondo Beach, and he's making his way eastbound. And now the Redondo Beach Police Department is involved, controlling traffic, setting up at intersections here. Whether or not they're going to try to box him in because he's going so slowly, that's dangerous because he could have a gun, obviously.
And what we saw earlier is that he was going slowly, and the police took the opportunity to speed up and try to get alongside him, and he just sped up. So there's always that risk that if they speed up, he will too.
But you would think now he's been in this area so long, Rick,
something's up,
that they could have police on every corner.
That's true.
Does it seem like that?
He does have a disabled. He has a disabled rim. Right front wheel has been punctured, so he is on the rim. So we'll try to get a better vantage shot of that, a vantage point of that from up here. He is now making his way on Broadway. I'll tell you what. I live just a few blocks from here, and this area very busy. You could see parked cars diagonally and one way in each direction. But the reason why he's moving so slowly and taking those turns so slow, because his at least one rim is out on the right side. Let's see, pit maneuver now because they know that. There you go. Tried to do it right. That was a very busy intersection there. That's Broadway and Torrance Boulevard.
They'll hit him again.
Not successful. You can see the damage there. And here he goes. They're going to try it again. That's the Redondo Beach Police Department trying that pit maneuver here.
And you have to be careful because
get some information here. Yeah, in this intersection here, he's really speeding up. They're going to try it again. Just missed him.
They need to get up by the rear wheel well.
This is a dangerous situation. Now, this is Pacific Coast Highway. Really dangerous here. Pitting him out on the busiest street.
There he goes. There he goes.
Successful here. Now, Redondo Beach. Now they're going to box him in. Dangerous situation. He could have a weapon here. He's trying to back up at this time. And all this opposing traffic. Look at this. He's going in reverse here down Pacific Coast Highway. Wow. Wow, this is something I have not seen up here. Going at it, and he's going to lose control. He will lose control. Spinning out there. Fortunately, he didn't hit anybody. I'm going to try to get some information from
blocking.
Yeah, there's a truck. He may have just been trying to make a turn. Who knows? But again, don't try to be a hero. This guy is, obviously acting really erratically now, and he's still able to move at a good clip. They're going to try to clip him again and spin him out, and he continues to make his way.
The thing about that pit maneuver is you have to really get up there, even with that wheel well, right?
Yeah,
you can't.
Absolutely.
Looks like they've knocked his bumper off, but not.
And this is a hard. They're going to do it on PCH. They want to bring this to an end, and he's really picking up speeds, traveling southbound on a highway, one of the busiest stretches of highway up and down the coast of California. And he's really he's really picking up speed now on southbound Pacific Coast Highway. Fortunately, it did not appear that despite all of that activity we saw, driving backwards, in reverse, being spun out on Pacific Coast Highway, nobody else was involved. LA County Sheriff's helicopter tracking this from above. Now it appears that the Redondo Beach Police Department, they are the lead agency right down Pacific Coast Highway, the heart of Redondo Beach, heading towards Riviera Village. You can see the bumper damage, the back bumper damage. And as you can look at his wheel, looks like the back rear wheel is on the rim. You see that, Steve, Lisa? So that tire was definitely engaged with one of those
Rick, as we're
spike
watching this, he's on PCH. They have to be very careful in what they do
no
here.
question. No question. There's a lot of opposing
public
traffic
safety
up and
becomes a
down
huge
Pacific Coast
issue
Highway.
here.
Yeah, unbelievable what we just saw there, and how he was able to maneuver that car in reverse at that speed after being pitted and having at least one disabled tire down on the rim. That's really incredible. Now, because he's more agitated, because he knows that this could be coming to an end, whether or not he's going to just bust through these red lights and endanger opposing traffic, that's what we're going to have to watch out for.
Well, that's the big concern, isn't it? And at what speed does traffic travel at this stretch of PCH? Are people going 50? Are they going 30? I mean, that's the worry is that people are traveling at a pretty good clip.
Front tire's bad. Front tire's bad now, too. Front tire's bad, too. About 45 miles an hour typically. Look at that. Yeah, now
all right, there we go.
Oh, all right. We're going to get on the other side here, and we're going to get a better shot. Yeah, he definitely hit a curve. Officers are out, but it looks like there still could be some activity here.
Looks like they're ramming the car, though.
They're out. They've got the drawn guns. Obviously, this is the
There's sheriff's deputies there, too.
This
is Redondo Beach Police. This is definitely the most dangerous situation here.
Again, it was a carjacking suspect, so we do not know if he was armed, but there is a possibility.
No question. And let's see what's happening now. Now, this is going to be a tight shot here in that we have the vegetation. This is on Pacific Coast Highway, just past Palos Verdes Drive on what would be the southbound side of Pacific Coast Highway. Guns are drawn. We're going to continue to move so that we can get a better position here around the trees. I'm directing the pilot here so that we can get a good shot of this.
He did not flee. He's still in the car.
Still in the vehicle, and fortunately it does not, despite all of that mayhem that we saw, it does not look like anybody else was impacted. There were no collisions. It didn't look like anybody was hit. And in this situation, he was down 2 wheels. Those right two were out completely.
Waiting for that door to open. Waiting for that door to open and for him to come up. It sounds like looks like they're engaged with him verbally, doesn't it?
It certainly does. But again, this is a situation that could turn out to last hours. We've seen that in the past, or it could end very quickly. He knows his time has run out, and he just gives up. And clearly, they are giving him strict instructions right now. This male driver who's wanted for carjacking in either the Southgate area or a portion of LA County near South Los Angeles that is unincorporated, and that's why the LA County Sheriff's Department was the lead agency. But as this pursuit made its way southbound through the beach cities, from LAX, Manhattan Beach got involved, Hermosa Beach, and now Redondo Beach, the lead agency.
And I think we have to say grateful. I mean, this is really, this could have been much worse. I mean, he drove at slow speeds, that nobody was hurt. It's pretty amazing.
Up until the end, it was the safest of these pursuits we've seen in a long time. And then at the end, it became wildly unsafe. When he was driving backwards, Rick.
That was amazing. Down Pacific Coast Highway, Highway 1 in Redondo Beach, busy on both sides, any time of day. And how he was able to maneuver was quite remarkable. Now, the officers in black uniforms, those are Redondo Beach police officers. My father is a reserve officer with the Redondo Beach, so I'm trying to get some information from him on this as well, if he could perhaps give us some additional info. But guns drawn, they're directing him, they're giving him strict instructions. to get out, hands up. You see it so many times from up here in Sky Fox where he does not face the officers. The suspects do not spread out over the road, but that's just not happening.
This hasn't happened. And Rick, we have to keep in mind, we're assuming everything. There's one driver. He's there. We don't know, could there be others there, others hiding, others who were thrown into the vehicle that we haven't seen? Does he have weapons? And we repeat, the police officers have to go onto the basis of worst case scenario, that he's armed and ready to shoot. You have to treat it that way.
No question. Absolutely. If he carjacked somebody, he likely used a weapon, and they're assuming such. And look at that. You can see a sharpshooter right there with a weapon drawn on that suspect just in case. That is likely a SWAT member down there. Heavy-duty weaponry there, trained on this suspect, because he's not giving up. They're telling him to give up. He's not giving up. He endangered a number of people, especially here in Redondo Beach, and that is the agency now that is handling this. The Redondo Beach Police Department here on Pacific Coast Highway, just south of Catalina, only blocks from the beach. And this pursuit made its way down the South Bay, just a block or two from the beach, from LAX southward into the beach cities, from El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, and now to this point. Finally, they were able to successfully pit pursuit intervention technique, essentially spin him out. That pit maneuver was essentially designed by an officer in Fairfax County, Virginia, and then was that maneuver was shared with other agencies across the country over the years, and now it is a successful means of bringing a pursuit to the end.
Reading the
His
body
wheels
language,
were disabled.
Rick. I'm sorry, Rick.
They're guns drawn. They're concerned.
Absolutely. There's no relaxation here.
Not until that door opens and he's out. This could last for a long time or be over in an instant. You never know. But the tension for these officers.
He has to cede control to the officers. Obviously, he hasn't yet. And, when we watch these things, the body language tells us a lot. These guys are absolutely armed, on alert. You don't see other people walking around casually. Sometimes you do in this kind of scene. This obviously is at this peak moment of danger because he's not cooperating.
No, and let's widen out a little bit, and I'll show you what they are doing to protect everybody here. The major intersection, that's Pacific Coast Highway, up and down, top to the bottom of your screen. We'll tilt up. That's PB Drive. They have traffic blocked there completely, so you can't make your way in either direction. And then tilting down, you can see the officers on the opposing side of Pacific Coast Highway, which would be the northbound side of PCH, holding traffic there as well. They're negotiating with this guy. They're hoping that he will surrender. He'll get out of the automobile. Unclear if there is anybody else inside the vehicle. That is a possibility. Again, the windows have been tinted. It was a carjacking, and there's certain situations where we've seen that actually the innocent person goes along for the ride, but no indication of that from what we saw during this pursuit.
We should tell people who are just joining us in the last hour as we follow this pursuit. Inexplicably, for some reason, the guy just rolled down his window and stuck his arm out.
Yeah, he certainly did. He took on a more casual demeanor. The whole pursuit has been somewhat casual in that the speeds were low. He was abiding by each street light, stoplight, he'd stop. And if he did have the red, he'd go through it, but he made sure both sides were clear. He never went over the speed limit, and he just made his way relatively safely, except that he wasn't yielding to officers, through South L.A. towards LAX.
All
into
around
Westchester.
LAX, right? I mean, he really
he did a loop around the complex,
circles, right.
as we did. And then finally, when he got into the beach cities, he rolled down the window, as you guys mentioned, and looked like he made some gestures at some people, possibly some other motorists. Spike strips were laid out a number of times, and it looks like finally either the third or perhaps a fourth one that we did not witness was successful and did disable the two right side tires, the front right and the bottom, the rear right tires. And with that car was diminished. It was compromised. Its ability to drive was compromised, so it was moving at a much slower rate. That's when it entered Redondo Beach, and that's when the Redondo Beach Police Department took control, and they attempted to pit a couple of times, and finally they were successful here on Pacific Coast Highway, just to the south of Catalina Avenue.
Yeah, as you can see, the bumper is off the car. They tried the pit maneuver several times, weren't quite tight enough.
Let's go back.
Oh, there it is.
The pit maneuver right here.
There you go, spin once. And this is crazy.
And the driving in reverse, just unbelievable. At the speed down Pacific Coast Highway.
Ginger Rogers of car.
He was in the right side. He was on the right side of Pacific Coast Highway because he was moving southbound on PCH, but he was moving in reverse.
This
southbound.
is nuts, really,
this
right?
Is nuts.
Yeah.
This is nuts.
And that one truck that we saw there, it was unclear if they were trying to help police officers or not. But when he was making his way in reverse like that, he was moving at a good clip, a high rate of speed, one of the highest speeds he had been through the whole pursuit. And he was aimed at another officer, so he was endangering. Whenever a situation like that starts to happen, they definitely are in risk. These
we're watching the tape here, Rick, as you describe what was happening as well. It's just amazing. Here comes the end. Hit it again, hit it again, hit it again,
and
there into the curb.
Sidewalk, yeah.
Yep.
And here we are now, and it's a standoff. Half a dozen or so, plus officers from the Redondo Beach Police Department, guns drawn. They have the suspect, a target, right there, just in case.
And likely they're speaking to them with a loudspeaker and, trying to talk him down and trying to get him to get out of the car.
There's a protocol for doing all of this, but Rick, as we know, usually the protocol is the desirable thing. Other things happen. This guy has not been following protocol at this moment.
No, absolutely not. And I would say, that the suspect is not. The officers are doing, what they've been trained to do. And the situation here, too, is if there was an exchange of gunfire here, they have to be concerned about these units here, these condominiums, these two-story condominiums on the south side of Pacific Coast Highway. Now, it looks like, and these people are pretty close watching all this unfold, which is a little bit of a surprise, and that if gunfire was needed, and they don't want that to happen at all, obviously. They want to bring this to a peaceful conclusion, and it would come to a conclusion. I think this is a point where we can make the point because, we've seen so many officer-related incidents, justifiable force, unjustifiable force. The bottom line, in a situation like this, you have a suspect who is driving recklessly, endangering the lives of officers and other people. He's inside that car. He's being given strict instructions. Give up. We will handcuff you. We'll take you down to the police department. We'll book you. We'll interview you, and nobody will get hurt.
And Rick,
that's what they're trying to do here.
Rick, we were talking
he's
earlier.
Not giving up.
We were talking earlier about our Los Angeles and our seemingly sort of morbid curiosity about car chases and why ratings go up and people watch them. And it's for moments like this. It's for the end. When you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, it is a real-life drama. There's also some criticism of too much coverage of this stuff.
Does it cheer them on? Does it
perhaps
inspire
nobody
people?
has a real answer, I don't think, for that. But what happens is this is real life. This is not a movie. This is happening in front of you right now. Human nature is such you can't take your eyes off of it.
I also have to say, when you look at police and sheriff's officers in these situations, you get a sense that they earn every dime.
You also get a sense of many dimes being spent, resources all tied up for this one guy at this moment.
And what's happening right now, they will bring in, if not one of these officers is already trained, speaking of making their dollars and cents, as negotiators. They're trained a little bit more, perhaps, than an ordinary beat patrol officer, so that they have the right language. They know what to say to communicate with suspects like this who just aren't willing to give up. We don't know what we're dealing with here. This individual could be under the influence. He could be, emotionally unstable. Obviously, to some point he is. He may be going through some serious personal issues. We don't know the whole story. And with that, there's a situation that these suspects at times don't really care if they live or die, unfortunately.
All right,
and with that being the case,
I'm sorry, Rick. We're going to go back again and show this unprecedented look. There you have the pit maneuver, the spinning car. You think it's over, and then he starts driving backward. Even you, Rick, a veteran of all of these pursuits, were shocked.
Yeah, it was something else to watch that. I had never seen anything like that before, where he was traveling at such a high rate of speed and was able to maneuver the automobile.
Yeah, on
PCH, Highway 1, and the heart of Redondo Beach here, and was able to maneuver the car despite the fact that the two right wheels were disabled.
Oh, this was, though, the beginning of the end as you follow it through. There was another pit maneuver, and then we end up with the situation we see right now. He is still inside the vehicle. He's not come out. He has not followed the orders and commands given to him.
And that's what they all they want to do is bring this to a peaceful end, and that's what they're communicating to him. They said, "Hey, give up, please, hands up. Nobody gets hurt. We'll talk to you. Let's keep everything calm here, and let's end this. Your life isn't over yet, but we don't want anybody to get hurt at this point. And this is a standoff situation, and we've seen standoffs like this last for hours. Why? Because they don't want to give up. They feel that they're still not in custody at this time.
I thought the statistic that you gave us, which is an updated statistic that I had not heard, 18% of the people who flee and lead police on police chases in Los Angeles actually get away.
Yeah, they do. And again, some of that, though, Lisa and Steve, is that the officers pull back.
Yeah.
They pull back. But there are, and we've seen a few of them up here actually get away, or we hear on the scanner that they lost the suspect. Motorcyclists have an easier time of getting away and evading police, obviously, because of their mode of transportation. But yes, close to 20% do actually get away. And this guy isn't going to get away, but this could last for some time. In a big stretch of PCH, they are shutting down now. In fact, fire crews arriving on scene several blocks of Pacific Coast Highway, both north and southbound, between, it looks like, Palos Verdes Boulevard now and Prospect closed. So traffic is being diverted around this, and this could be a situation that lasts for some time.
And another, again, could have been much worse because it was such a slow-speed chase. It wasn't the sort of dangerous situation we had a week and a half ago.
And at this point, you would say a rational person knows it's over. But we're talking about rational people.
Right.
People who carjack cars, people who go in a police
and run from the police.
Rational.
Are not.
Yes.
That's exactly right. And this guy isn't, and he's refusing to give up to the Redondo Beach Police Department. Now, again, the lead agency on this, because we keep talking about that, just to sort of educate you how all of these pursuits happen. The lead agency was the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department because it was in their jurisdiction that carjacking or the situation in which the suspect was picked up and followed occurred in their jurisdiction. That's why they were the lead agency. And they stayed on it all the way through LAX, Playa del Rey, into El Segundo, and they are still here. But then the lead agencies change as you go into different jurisdictions. We saw that in Manhattan Beach when they went into Hermosa Beach. Hermosa Beach Police either aided or they became the lead agency. And it was the Redondo Beach Police Department that really did take the helm and brought this pursuit to an end successfully without hurting anybody, any innocent people,
which is a miracle. Hey, Rick, you said something that was interesting. It may have just been that the carjacking did not take place at 68th and Central. That could be just where the sheriffs picked up the chase. Is that what I'm to understand?
We don't know that. That's that information we're still trying to find out. So at times we hear of a carjacking, 10 blocks away. The guy takes off. They get a call about the carjacking, and then it was at that location where they first intercepted the guy and lit him up. He didn't pull over, he didn't yield, and the pursuit was on. So we're still trying to ascertain that information, specifically where the carjacking took place, how the officers encountered the suspect. Maybe they witnessed it, maybe they were right there, or maybe they intercepted this guy a distance away. And it could have happened an hour before as well. We don't know.
And I'm assuming we would have heard if anyone had been hurt in that carjacking. Scanner traffic.
By now, probably we would have, and so far the good news is it didn't happen. All right, here's that pit maneuver again, and then that sort of unprecedented, absurd moment where you think it's over, and he starts driving backwards.
And after being disoriented, let me tell you, having done this training thing with the Sheriff's Department on these pit maneuvers and being in a car that had the maneuver done on it.
He's doing it. He's going fast. If not for that truck, he'd continue.
But you're disoriented. You've been spun around, and then you step on the gas going backwards?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And he was able to maintain control. That was precision driving, especially with two disabled wheels. Two tires.
Right, here we go to the end of it. There's one more maneuver right here. Turns it around a little bit. One coming up right there. Turns it around and then to the curb. And then we have this standstill situation right now, waiting and cajoling and talking to the guy in the vehicle to come on out. It is over. You're not going anywhere. Of course, there are other issues. Does he have arms? Would he have suicide by cop in mind? Right. Would he have suicide in mind rather than turn himself in? All these are possibilities.
We don't know if he wants, if this guy wants to live or die. We don't know his history, if he's already a third striker, if he's a parolee. Bottom line, he's not giving up at this time, and the time is on the officer's side. Yeah. He's not going anywhere.
That officers, looks like a dozen cars, a dozen police vehicles and sheriff's vehicles here.
No question. You can, at least. And you can see some police tape up. So now they're starting to set up a little bit more of a perimeter. As I indicated, if this were to end in an unfortunate way where gunfire was exchanged, and it will only end that way, and I need to make this point time and time again, it will only end that way if the suspect doesn't do what he's told, and he does something that's erratic that may lead the officers to think that their lives or other people's lives are in danger. Again, shootings, the majority of them, 99.9% of them, only occur because the suspect or suspects do something they haven't been told. They've been told, I should say. And the situation here, he's being told. He's been told, hands up. Let's bring this to a peaceful end. And he's choosing not to surrender at this point. A large area has been cordoned off on Pacific Coast Highway. Again, PCH north and southbound, a major north-south thoroughfare here through Redondo Beach into Torrance and Hermosa Beach, blocked between Palos Verdes Drive on essentially the west side of PCH here, because this stretch of PCH sort of runs east-west here, the bend here, and Prospect. You can see all the people, the onlookers in front of Rock and Brews there, and ground media arriving on scene here as well, and this guy just refuses to give up. But once again, time is on the officer's side. They may need to bring in more crisis negotiators.
People watching get impatient, saying, why don't they do something? Well, you know what, Rick? They don't want to do anything. They want this thing to end without action. It's kind of a hurry up and wait situation. They'll wait him out. They're not going to get impatient and say, let's just go in and get him.
Nope.
It doesn't operate that way.
You're exactly right. And they have to, again, they're mindful of the fact that he may have a weapon. They obviously are acting that way because of the situation that unfolded that led to this pursuit, this relatively slow speed pursuit. If you are just joining us, it was at or below speed limits for the majority of the time. It wasn't until it entered Redondo Beach here, fourth or fifth city that this pursuit made its way through in Southern California, did it get really erratic, where he started to get a little more agitated and then started to pick up speed a little bit and was trying to do what he could to evade police. And then once the initial pit maneuver was attempted, that's when he really went out of control, driving backwards, trying to pick up speed, trying to do whatever he could to evade the officers. But the next pit maneuver was successful, and this is where it is on Pacific Coast Highway, the southbound side of Pacific Coast Highway, just past Palos Verdes Drive.
Lucky no one was hurt. I mean, really and truly, for almost 2 hours.
Especially near the end. Yeah, when it got erratic.
On Pacific Coast Highway, with all that traffic, opposing traffic, and he could have lost control and went into oncoming traffic from the other side of Pacific Coast Highway, northbound side of PCH, and that could have been a real mess. Fortunately, it didn't happen. And again, they're setting up a perimeter. They've removed those people that were at the corner there, and possibly making their way, some of the officers, into those condominiums to make sure everybody's out, at least on the street side, just in case.
Just in case.
As a precaution.
This could turn into a shootout. I mean, you have to go, again, worst case scenario.
That's right.
Got to warn everybody in the area.
And those condos there on the left would be downrange from those guns that are positioned towards them and the suspect.
We can't hear, and I know you can't hear, but we imagine what's going on right now is a conversation. Now, I don't know if it's a one-sided conversation or he's participating, but people are trained for this, and as you mentioned, Rick, there are specialists who also come to talk the guy down, talk logic to him. As you mentioned, your life isn't over. Let's end it as peacefully as we can at this point. You're in trouble, but you'll only be in more trouble.
All of that's being said.
Yes.
Yep. All of that's being said. He said, let's not hurt anybody. Let's all go home safe. Let's bring this to a peaceful conclusion, and we'll work this out down at the station. But clearly, he's not listening to the officers at this time. Again, there's a chance that more trained crisis negotiators may be en route to say the right thing to perhaps
and they try to get a sense of who he is.
Whether or not there's communication between him and anybody else, if you had a cell phone, if that cell phone still has a charge to it, if there's been any communication between him and any people that he's connected with, we don't know, or if he's in touch with law enforcement, that is a possibility. But
And Rick,
again, those are,
I've heard from the hostage or the crisis negotiators from the departments that what they try to do is get a sense of him. They want him to talk. They want to know his name, and they want to be able to contact people who know him. They want to say, we've spoken with your mother, or we know.
Right.
They try to get him to say anything.
What is his neighborhood? We don't know.
Right.
He stayed in the beach towns for quite a while.
He did.
Is he from that area? Is that why he's there?
That's right. Yeah, we just don't know. A lot of times that happens, and he did choose to stay in this general vicinity here, and he was making some laps through Manhattan Beach and Hermosa, and perhaps he was lost. He's not familiar with the neighborhood, or indeed he could have a connection to the beach cities. They have done, all the officers, all the agencies involved have done all the research they can on the vehicle that he was driving, on any information that they may have on the suspect, to try to make those connections with perhaps friends, loved ones, to try to bring this to an end. And they may have zero communication, have no idea what they're dealing with, if he has a gun or not. So both case scenarios could be unfolding.
And as you were saying earlier about getting to a community that they know, that they're familiar with, one of the reasons is that sometimes they ditch the car, as we saw happen overnight, where a suspect was involved in a chase and crashed the car into a pole, and then jumped out of the car and took off on foot.
Yeah, we don't know what we call the backstory on this.
Right.
We only pick it up after the carjacking, and we don't know the mental state of mind. There can be a whole story here, or it could be a very simple story. We just don't know.
That's right. And I know our assignment desk, our news desk, is working hard to answer some of those questions, because perhaps a PIO from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department can give us some background information, how this all started.
Rick, I want your dad to get on the line with you.
Right? You're a Redondo police officer,
I'm
right?
working it.
Reserve officer.
Yeah.
And again, I mentioned Rick has particular expertise in this neighborhood right here, because this is where you grew up. You know these streets.
I live blocks from this location. I've lived here all my life, the majority of my life, and know this city, know this agency very well. And they don't get a lot of action like this, but they do at times. And when they do, they're ready to handle it like any agency, as they train for it on a day-to-day basis. Pursuits make their way through the beach cities as well, and they were trained to conduct that pit maneuver. Now, a point on that, though. When you enter a different jurisdiction and you are dealing with a different agency, that agency may be a bit more aggressive than other agencies. You saw when we were making our way through portions of L.A., around LAX and Playa del Rey, there may have been an opportunity and an attempt to bring this to an end through that boxing or a pit maneuver. We didn't see it. Why the Redondo Beach Police Department decided to get aggressive and do it, that's their prerogative.
We did see spike strips thrown down. We saw at least 3 spike strips.
We saw 3.
Go down.
We assumed there was another one that we didn't see. And also, you make a very, very good point here. There's not total agreement on how to handle these things. Los Angeles police made some radical changes in their approach, didn't they, Rick?
That they absolutely did. When you look at the number of pursuits that they deal with on an annual basis, and the outcome of some of them in terms of people losing their lives, the Los Angeles Police Department had the highest rate of fatalities in pursuits with innocent people, and because of that, they chose to implement a bit more of a cautious approach. At times, they will be aggressive, but there are other times where they feel that the suspect is just endangering a good portion of the public to a level that it just isn't safe.
And we talked about this a couple of hours ago, or now, Rick, which is there was a bill called Christie's Law, and it was named after a young girl, high school athlete, scholar up in Chino, California, who was driving home from a school game, and police were in pursuit of another teen, and the teen freaked out and stepped on the gas and ended up broadsiding that car, and the girl died. And so it's been introduced a couple of times in Sacramento, and always got a lot of pushback from police unions.
Police right here in Los Angeles. LAPD did not want it.
Did not want it. Chief Bratton, I remember I interviewed at the time, and he felt that the risk was not as great as the reward for the police chases.
And also, you're looking at this thing. You have a profusion and somewhat confusion of who's in charge at what moment, Rick. It's very ordinary for you to say this, but people get confused. You have a Los Angeles Police Department, which is not the Los Angeles county sheriff's department.
That's
and
right.
The beach cities, those which are independent cities, have their own police departments as well.
Own agencies. That's right. Essentially, the LA County Sheriff's Department, they are responsible for policing unincorporated areas of LA County, or maybe some communities that are actually incorporated, but they don't have the resources to have their own.
They don't have their own police
department.
departments. And so when you go along the beach, it gets confusing because you have part of Los Angeles City, Venice Beach, for instance. Venice is part of Los Angeles.
Playa del Rey, the part that we showed, yeah.
Yes. Then you have Marina del Rey, which is not part of the city of Los Angeles. It is an unincorporated part of the county of Los Angeles. Then
And they are?
Yeah, and you get to the beach.
Led by the Sheriff's Department.
But sheriff's departments, and then you get to the beach cities, and they each have their own independent
Their own
agencies. Yeah.
And we saw each of them in play. El Segundo Police, then Manhattan Beach, were running from north to south, down through the south portion of the Santa Monica Bay. That's what we call it, the South Bay. Then Manhattan Beach Police, they were involved, aiding in the pursuit. It still appeared that the Sheriff's Department was more the lead agency there. But once we got to Redondo here, it seemed like the Redondo Beach Police Department took control, and they were the ones who decided to pit the vehicle.
The only
they
thing
did
that
attempt
we're...
the initial pit.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
The only thing we're missing is CHP.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
You're absolutely right. Multiple agencies here
And
throughout
Rick,
Southern California.
10:06 in the morning now, and if you are just joining us, hey, Rick, why don't you tell us exactly where we are, if you want to widen out a little bit while we're waiting for this suspect who's just sitting out police right now, or police sitting out him, I guess. Police are just hanging out waiting for him to make a move. But tell us where we are so people, if they are heading that direction, can avoid it.
This is Pacific Coast Highway, Highway 1, the most famous highway in all of California, stretching from the southern fringe of the state up the north coast towards the Redwood Forest, and this portion of PCH in the heart of Redondo Beach.
Rick, is
PCH
shut down?
It's completely closed. As I mentioned earlier, between Palos Verdes Drive, that's the street there running left to right, and you can see the fire trucks blocking traffic there in the upper portion of your screen there. That's Riviera Village there, a very busy, popular shopping and dining area. Fire crew standing by just in case. That's PCH. It's closed here at Palos Verdes Boulevard all the way up towards Prospect. And those are just people who are showing up on the corner there of Rock and Brews to get a good view of what's happening.
Hey,
you can see the sheriff's deputies are still there.
That stretch of road is usually really congested.
Really heavily traveled.
Really heavily traveled.
So we also have a sidebar traffic issue here.
Yeah, we certainly do. Traffic being diverted onto Prospect, essentially on the south side of the closure, and PB Drive on the north side.
And I'm imagining it's going to be backed up. You know how it goes. It falls like dominoes here on PCH. I mean, it'll be backed up for miles.
Lisa, it's not as if we have traffic. We don't have traffic
problems. And even when this ends, then there'll be some investigation here at the site where the pursuit came to an end. They'll have to get a tow truck on scene, and that takes some time as well. If we can pedal left a little bit in our helicopter, I'm going to show. I'll show you that back up on PCH. Actually, because the morning rush is over, it doesn't look too bad. Traffic's just being diverted in a northerly direction on Prospect here by the CVS. There's Prospect there, and that's PCH. There's only a half a dozen cars or so having to make their way to turning right there or northbound on Prospect.
That looks pretty good for that.
Not too bad, at least
road,
at this point. But when just an hour, if you would have been here an hour or two prior during the morning rush, there's a lot of high schools, elementary, middle schools in the area. This stretch of PCH is just jammed. Not the case now that we've entered the mid to late morning hours here. Again, this pursuit started just after 8 o'clock near Southgate, or an unincorporated area of LA County, a carjacking suspect, an alleged carjacking suspect being pursued here. The details of that carjacking, where it actually occurred and where the pursuit started, we're still trying to ascertain that. If we know anything on the suspect, we're going to bring that information to you. But this pursuit, after winding its way from South LA, we picked it up first at the 110 Harbor Freeway and Century Boulevard. He made his way due west down Century Boulevard all the way to LAX. Made a right turn, picked up Manchester Boulevard, Manchester to the sea, and then made his way south.
Now watch this. If you haven't seen this yet, watch this, folks. This is pretty extraordinary.
He goes backwards slowly, and then he starts picking up speed. And then he's picking up speed, and then he's veering a little bit. There's a truck that will be blocking part of it. It'll cause him to kind of swerve and turn.
Like he gunned it. I mean, he was turned around by the pit maneuver and just floored it.
He was panicking. Maybe he didn't know he was in reverse, and He was meaning to go forward, but it was in rewind there, and sure enough, he made his way for almost a good city block there in Redondo Beach, and that was just prior to the pursuit coming to an end, just a few blocks south.
All right,
of that
we're going to see
location.
the end here right now, Rick. There's the beginning of it. There's one more maneuver that will happen, and he gets driven to the sidewalk, to the curb where he is now. So here we're coming toward the end.
There's that turn, and the bumper hanging off from earlier attempts to pit him. Here we go.
There's one, and there's going to be one more after this, and that will, well, right after that. There was another maneuver. Here it goes.
Here we go. Just trying to give a really good look at it.
All right, we're back live again.
They weren't letting this guy get away, that's for sure.
Yeah,
No.
there was one more
they
maneuver.
wanted
And so this, I didn't put a clock on it, but we've been here, 20, 30 minutes right now in this situation?
Yeah, it's been about that, almost a half an hour now, the standoff. And again, these guns are trained on the suspect, and they're not going to move from the suspect. They're watching him closely, his every move.
And there's nothing they can do. I mean, aside from trying to engage him verbally, which is what they want to do, there's not much they can do. He's inside a car. They don't know if he has a weapon. They have to always assume he does, particularly since he was a carjacking suspect. Most carjackers
But let
have
me
a weapon.
raise a question here, Rick, and perhaps you can answer it. The police are very, very patient. They want nothing to happen. They don't want something to happen. But at some point, they can't stay here for a week. So at some point, some decision has to be made.
What would happen at that point is they would call in SWAT. They'd bring in one of those armored vehicles, a Bearcat, plow it right into the side of his car, so that then he's got essentially nowhere to go. He's even boxed in more with guns trained on him, which is an intimidating factor as well. They will bring in a K9 unit, but at this point, that's not going to be useful because all the windows are rolled up, and in certain situations in standoffs where the suspect starts to get agitated and unroll the window and communicate with officers in such a way that K9s can be used as well. But they will bring in some other resources to bring it to an end, because you're absolutely right. This is going to come to an end. They want it to come to a peaceful end. They don't want anybody to get hurt, even though the suspect endangered their lives, these officers' lives, at least some of them, and some innocent people driving down PCH and other streets in Southern California this morning. They don't want this guy to get hurt either. They brought it to an end. So far, we're not hearing of any significant injuries with the pursuit or with that carjacking, that alleged carjacking. So they're hopeful just to take this suspect into custody.
Rick, looking at the body language again, it's not as tense as it was before. They are still armed and ready to go. They are still focused on the car with their weapons. But you see other officers walking around a bit, talking a little bit. Maybe it's because they just get used to this situation.
They are. They're trained for this situation. These officers, when they're out patrolling the streets, that when they're not fighting crime, they're in the classroom. They're always trying to get their craft even better. They learn from past experiences. They share data. They share experiences with different officers, jurisdictions from across the country to get a protocol going to see what the safest way to end a situation is. And these are highly trained officers in the city of Redondo Beach, and they're doing just that. They're patient. They're trying to communicate with this suspect, this carjacking suspect, and bring it to a peaceful end.
And if people weren't watching when this thing started a couple of hours ago, about an hour into it, Steve, right, the suspect rolls his window down.
Puts his arm out the window.
Cue. We're like, can you get a good look at him? And he rolled his window down.
And he seemed almost casual
Very
at that
casual.
point, and we thought that was going to be the ending.
You thought he was waving up to the police officer.
And that was an hour ago. So obviously that wasn't the ending at that point. This started about 7:40 this morning. Police responding to a carjacking in the Florence neighborhood near 68th Street and South Central Avenue. The suspect went down Century Boulevard, 405, north of LAX. Spent a lot of time around the airport.
Yeah, he took Manchester Avenue, went into the South Bay. The chase finally ended there, and our Rick Dickert has done a tremendous job, I have to say, Rick, again, giving us perspective on where this guy was at all times and giving us a perspective on traffic flow and danger to neighborhoods and communities. And your insight was right on.
Rick, when experience meets the moment, how many of these have you done, Rick?
Dozens. You and I both, Steve, together over the years.
And they took it to your backyard.
And they took it to his neighborhood.
Yeah.
Exactly. Literally blocks away from my house. My phone's blowing up. All my friends, my people down there are texting me, trying to find out what's going on.
Well, I was wondering.
We don't have much information.
Yeah, I was wondering at some point if he was going to your house.
He essentially he passed within a block of my house. I was pretty amazed how close this pursuit did get. And again, we're not trying to make light of the situation, and we want to make sure that everybody knows this is still a very
serious
standoff
very
situation.
dangerous.
And a perimeter essentially has been set up. And what we say, we talk about that with wildfires, police activity. They set a line around an incident, whether it be a forest that's burning or whether it be a situation in which other people could be in danger.
Can I tell you something, Rick? They do that
the
often.
Street in the area.
They do that often.
They
I myself
do.
was out of my neighborhood. There was a robbery in the neighborhood, and they cordoned off a whole neighborhood, and the school that was within the neighborhood went into lockdown. And they take it very seriously because they don't know where those. If bullets fly, there's no controlling where they go. So you have to make sure everybody within bullet range is out of there.
And you're looking at PCH right now, which is
and
not.
The perimeter has
closed.
increased.
Yep.
It's closed. It's closed, but also closed is this major stretch of Palos Verdes Boulevard, and they back people off from Rock and Brew. So making a good point there, Lisa, is that they want to clear the neighborhood the best they can, push everybody back out of harm's way, and they're doing that. The LA County Sheriff's Department there has pushed even the media back somewhat. The first thing I thought of, you mentioned schools on lockdown. What are the closest schools to this location? There is a Catholic school, St. James Catholic School, St. Lawrence, I should say, just a block or so up the street here. Whether or not they've kind of lock those kids down in place, that's unclear at this time.
They usually do just in case. They just do just in case.
The good news, though, is that the kids were all in the school at that point.
Right.
We are getting confirmation from police that this began with a strong armed robbery, which is obviously why police are on alert the way they are. Right now, we know that there are weapons involved, and of course that kicks up the danger that much more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a strong forced robbery like that. Absolutely. A weapon is involved here, and with that in mind, these officers are taking this very seriously.
When he rolled his window down, you got a pretty good look at him. Why don't you describe him for us?
He looked like a larger gentleman, either white or Hispanic, shaved head. And that point where he did roll down the window and he was just acting so casually, we too thought that perhaps he was getting ready to call it quits, but that was not the case as well. He was making his way through the beach cities, and we did get one unconfirmed report that there was a time when this pursuit made its way through Hermosa Beach. I would say Hermosa is, of the three beach cities, has the narrowest of alleys and streets, the numbered streets there, the courts. Very easy to kind of sneak into an area if officers are trailing far enough behind and lose them. And we believe that did happen actually for a short time. Now, there was a law enforcement airship up, so they were able to guide officers back, but it did appear for at least a short period of time he may have been able to duck away and evade police patrol cars on the ground through Hermosa Beach for a very short period of time. But this has come to an end. Well, at least the pursuit part of it has the vehicular portion of the pursuit of the suspect, the robbery and the carjacking suspect here on Pacific Coast Highway between Prospect Avenue and Palos Verdes Drive.
It's interesting that the way he meandered around all of these surface streets, never getting on the freeway after you picked up the pursuit. I mean, if we did earlier on in the morning, we don't know. But so he's not stupid, even if he's stupid.
But
he didn't get on the freeway.
Let me just take this speculation, Rick. We often talk about how people return to places they know, either where they live or they know the area. He was driving in a way that made it seem to me that he didn't know this area. Am I going too far on this, Rick?
No, absolutely not. And it could be either scenario in that, the suspects, a lot of times they do come back to neighborhoods they are familiar with, and they think that they have a better chance of evading police, perhaps even ducking into a property that they're familiar with, or they just get lost. They're in an area, they're just trying to evade police, and they don't really have much of a direction or a plan, and they just end up in neighborhoods, and a lot of times that'll go against them because they'll run into a dead end or another location where they just can't get away. And that wasn't the case here, that's for sure. He was able to make his way through the beach cities to this point.
As we watched all of those police vehicles, sheriff's vehicles, following him at such slow speeds, trying to get to intersections ahead of where his trajectory was to warn people off, to stop traffic. It was pretty incredible to see it continue for so long without anyone getting hurt. No pedestrians, no other. He didn't ram other cars. It was a very, as Steve said, a very well-mannered pursuit for
it certainly was
most of the time until he got pressured, and then once he was pressured, he became more erratic.
But where we are right now, I mean, it's very static looking, but this could be very, very bad because he's not cooperated.
He's not.
We don't know what condition he's in inside the car. You can speculate on that. Is he there? Is he alive? Is he talking to somebody on the phone? Is he willing to die before he turns himself in? Or is he just panicked in a way that he's paralyzed and he doesn't want to do anything?
And I'm trying to get some help on the ground here and to get that information. Perhaps we can find that out from the Redondo Beach Police Department, because as you can see, officers trained on him, and they have different vantage points of that suspect at this time, and whether or not they've seen any movement from the suspect. If we pan just to the right, it looks like a dark-colored pickup truck has arrived. I told you that perhaps some reinforcements, some heavier duty equipment may be coming in, and those officers may be SWAT officers. You had asked Steve and Lisa, what's the next move? They're not going to just sit here for hours and hours, and they will bring in heavier equipment.
We've seen police pursuits where they use something to break the windows, and then they can shoot in a tear gas canister. I mean, there's different ways that they can play it out.
Where are the canines? Oftentimes they're on scene by now.
Yeah, I don't see them as of yet, but that was the point I made just a short time ago, that I would be surprised if they're not here soon, because they are a definite good resource in a situation like this, especially if windows, doors start opening up. They're a good line between the officers and the suspects.
Right.
So they are
Often
officers. Those canine,
right.
They are officers themselves, those dogs.
But think about what we're looking at here. There's a guy in a vehicle. I don't know how many police vehicles and sheriff's vehicles there are. A major traffic artery is shut down. This is costing a lot of money. This is tying up resources. These units should be other places, policing other areas. This is all part of the story we're looking at.
And that's why they want to bring this to an end. And Redondo Beach, I mean, they were the ones who took the lead once it entered their city and said, hey, not in our city. We want to bring this to an end quickly. And they tried the pit maneuver a couple of times and were finally successful, even doing it on Pacific Coast Highway, because they wanted to bring it to an end. So with that in mind, they may be a little bit aggressive in trying to bring this to a quicker end, as opposed to letting it last for hours on end, which we have seen. We've seen an entire freeway be shut down for a couple of hours as they've negotiated with these suspects. And again, they're not doing what they're told. They were running from police, these suspects, this suspect as well. They're being told to pull over. They don't. And that's the initial thing.
If they committed an armed robbery and a carjacking, there's a pretty good chance they're not doing what they're told in a lot of ways in their life.
And they want to get away. That's right.
But I got to tell you, watching these officers, where their training really kicks in, going through the pursuit process and following protocol and procedures, not trying to incite the guy and to get him jacked up so that he steps on the gas and becomes more dangerous.
But remember, part of the training is the police officers have their adrenaline racing through them. They've got to sit on that a little bit, Rick. You know, that's always an issue.
Deep breath, absolutely. Calm, deep breath once these pursuits come to an end, because they're running high as these pursuits are going on, and as soon as they come to an end, they have that adrenaline, they have that energy.
Well, they train to be adrenalized, right? In their training, they are adrenalized when they put that. That's what they do. They adrenalize them. That's why those simulators are so critical for training them in pursuits. They're like you sit in them like a flight simulator, and you drive those cars high-speed chases.
When you were doing this, and in case you weren't listening earlier, Lisa McCree went through this whole training when she was with the program California Connected. What was your adrenaline like?
Oh, it shoots right up because they're putting you in situations of, there's a school, they put people in crosswalks, they're trying to adrenalize the officers so that they can
what's happening here, Rick? Why are they backing off?
Well, as I had predicted, who's arrived? SWAT. SWAT is here now. They're a heavily armored vehicle. You could see SWAT officers already on scene, and at times it takes some time for those officers because they're specially trained officers. They may live in Santa Clarita or off in Long Beach and have to come to a scene, but they have arrived here. You could see a couple of them, dressed differently and having
full body armor,
more
right?
armor. And here he goes. Here goes that armored vehicle here, and it's going to push right up against the vehicle, as I had predicted earlier. That's exactly what's happening here. To intimidate, yes.
Yeah.
To provide more support, yes. For the officers, protection to the officers, absolutely. And hopefully bring this to an end.
You can see the officers using it as cover. See behind the vehicle. You can see officers moving into position. I'm surprised they haven't. They haven't made contact though. It doesn't look like, right? It looks like they're still trying to talk him out, get him out before they go further.
And the windshield on that armored vehicle, obviously bulletproof. He's going to pop open the porthole there on the top, and then he will have a weapon trained on that suspect as well. More artillery here arriving on scene. The officers still that lead patrol car, that Redondo Beach patrol car, still engaged with the back right rear of this compact car that was being pursued for miles and miles for a couple of hours. And here comes another armored vehicle. As I said,
this is what I was wondering about. He always had that empty area there.
Right.
It's closed now.
Now it's closed. And now they have better protection of the situation, even a stronger perimeter or line against the danger. And then you will see some of these lead officers, some of them that were in the patrol cars, back off. Some of them will still stay trained. So now we're going to have bullets pointed or weapons pointed at this guy from every angle, and coming from vehicles that are the most protected vehicles out there in law enforcement, these SWAT vehicles.
There they go.
This is
a
major production at this
point.
Really is. And it's one guy in a vehicle. We do know he was involved in what they call strong arm or strong force episode earlier, the carjacking. So they have to proceed with the idea that he is truly armed and dangerous.
And the Sheriff's Department picked up the pursuit at 68th Street and Central down in South Los Angeles and went from there.
7:40 this morning, so it's been going on almost 3 hours now.
And it came to a conclusion here, the vehicular part of it on Pacific Coast Highway. That's PCH, a major stretch of it, shut down north and southbound here in Pacific Coast on Pacific Coast Highway between Palos Verdes Drive and Prospect Avenue. You cannot make your way in either direction. A couple schools nearby, Riviera Hall Lutheran School, St. Lawrence Catholic School, Toledo Elementary School, part of the Redondo Beach Unified School District. Close enough that they may be on lockdown. If we tilt the camera up, or modified lockdown, if we tilt the camera up, we'll show you PV Drive. There's the Fat Burger there on the corner. Still some people out there. And if we pan to the right up the street, you could see more law officers, more police officers here showing up. Police tape is up. There's more blocking off streets. A large perimeter now has been set up in this beach community.
I'm surprised they're letting the bystanders. It looks like are there bystanders still on the corner? Or did they?
Yeah, right there on the corner of that's Palos Verdes Drive.
I'm surprised they're allowed to stay there.
Yeah, we'll show you the distance between them because they removed the ones on the other side of the street.
Oh, good, they did.
In front
Okay,
of
good.
Rockenhurst,
That was closer.
But there they are. They're still relatively close. So the Redondo Beach Police Department, dates back to 1892, one of the older agencies here in Southern California, and they've been patrolling the beach city here since then. And they do have their own SWAT apparatus. They have canines, special weapons tactics team of the SWAT department, and they're highly trained and ready to handle anything. And there you can see more members piling out the back end of the one vehicle here, two of them boxing this suspect in. And whether or not there's been movement from this suspect, that's something we still are trying to ascertain at this point. But as you can see, it looks like the majority of the officers that did have their guns positioned from that patrol car have backed off, and now it's just the SWAT members that are monitoring this.
All right, I'm wondering earlier that pursuit that took us onto PCH when he went backwards.
Yeah.
What speed do you think that was, Rick? I couldn't tell. Was he going like 40 miles an
I would
hour
guess
backwards?
25 miles.
40,
30,
I would say 40 to 45,
really?
no question.
Crazy.
He
It was crazy.
I think he went faster in reverse than he did going
I
forward.
do too. Here's the
let's
tape.
watch
Watch
it, yeah.
this. This is really
That was-
incredible.
Pit
that was something
maneuver.
else.
Pit maneuver.
Off
This
the
is actually
bumper.
the end
Oh,
of
that's the very
the
end.
pursuit right there.
If we roll back the tape and we can see the beginning of the end, right, when he turned onto PCH, and that's
Right.
when that final, after they again tried the pit maneuver on him, quite a few times.
Now,
Here we go.
watch what happens here. There's a little maneuver here, a little dangerous, all the
Look at
traffic.
that.
Now he turns around. You think it may be over. It's not over. He's going to start driving in reverse slowly, and then he actually picks up speed as he goes along here.
Floors it.
And as he goes on, there's a truck blocking the other side of the street. This is where he has to make a 180 or almost a 360 here.
Yeah, some truck driver decided to be helpful and
Yeah,
was.
that's what it looks like.
Yeah, and then but then he was able to spin around and get faced forward again. It was something.
Then he moved on, and then the inevitable end does come. I'm looking at these pit maneuvers. This is on a pretty crowded street.
Yeah.
Kind of
It
dangerous.
certainly was on Pacific Coast Highway. Can't
Yes.
get much more crowded than
Right.
that in Redondo Beach.
And as you mentioned, different police agencies have different philosophies about doing something like that.
Because we saw opportunities prior to what we saw here in Redondo Beach of officers choosing not to on much less traveled streets through Los Angeles up into Westchester, Playa del Rey. And it wasn't until Redondo Beach the officers here decided to bring this to an end and to conduct that.
We know
Let me
that
just
you're down
do a little
some-
bit of business here. You're watching, pardon me, extended coverage of the Fox 11 News as we continue covering the end of this police pursuit. And by the way, we're calling it the end, but it's been going on for quite some time.
That's right. And 10:30 in the morning we are now, and it started about, what, 7:40?
About 7:40, we're pushing up to almost 3 hours since the beginning of the pursuit. It was described as a strong-armed robbery involving this pursuit. So therefore,
So it's weaponized.
It's weaponized. It's been adrenalized
Yep.
as well. And meanwhile, we're in this kind of status quo. It's very static what's going on right now. We've got the big guys are there.
When they finally got him with the pit maneuver, Stephen, and he finally lost control of the vehicle and ended up on the curb, they'd been weakening him by trying spike strips. It looks like 3 to 4 over
Well,
the
we
morning.
saw 3 of them.
We think there was a 4th.
2 of them had some connection. 1 missed. While we were away, we think there was a 4th, and that really did, if not immobilize them, it really slowed them
And
down.
Rick,
a
if
lot.
you could explain to our viewers, how those spike strips work, and how the police have to go ahead and sort of determine where the guy's going to drive. A little bit.
And that's the biggest challenge. That's the biggest challenge in deploying those is where that suspect is going to be. And if it's on a long, narrow highway in a desolate area, then it's easy. They know that he's traveling north or southbound on Interstate 5, and they can deploy officers in advance of where the pursuit is and throw those strips out, and they have plenty of time to do so. In a situation like this, in a highly urbanized area off the freeway, it becomes much more challenging. They have to essentially get a feel for what the suspect is doing, and they were able to do that in knowing that this guy has pretty much been traveling in the same direction on a lot of the major thoroughfares.
And how long are those spike strips, and how to describe how they look to folks if they haven't seen them up close?
They vary in length, but they're generally anywhere from 6 to maybe perhaps 8 or 9 feet. They can't be so long that they become cumbersome to toss out. But essentially, they're just these metal spikes that are set to sort of deploy vertically upwards, so that if a vehicle were to drive over them, it's going to do some serious damage and essentially disable the vehicle through flattening.
And an officer has
tires.
to actually, there's danger in that too. An officer actually has to jump out of the car and lay that thing down. They aren't just throwing it out the window. They actually have to put it in place.
We're getting questions from some viewers. Jerry is asking the question, why don't they just shoot the guy? And that's the kind of impatience that a viewer has that has not much to do with the real life of what's happening here.
You're right. I mean, obviously, you could take, that thought process and just say, hey, this guy has endangered officers, endangered the general public out there. He's tying up resources. He's shut down a major stretch of Highway 1 here in Southern California,
But also,
and he's not
Rick,
doing what he's told.
Also,
That's
Rick,
just not
we
the
know
protocol of these officers.
we don't know for sure that there isn't anyone in the back seat. We don't know. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons they don't just, go Bonnie and Clyde on this guy. I mean, honestly,
You're absolutely right.
shoot bullets all over the place. Is because they don't know for sure. If there's somebody in the trunk, is a hostage in the back seat.
They
don't
always
know.
have to act on that basis.
That's right.
You would hope by now they've gotten a good look, but we did mention there were tinted windows, right?
And you can see from our picture, and we're trying to get tight up against it, you can see inside the windshield of the SWAT vehicle there on the top of your screen, you can see some movement with one of the officers there. You can see that gun drawn. You see that SWAT officer there right out of the porthole with a good, and he's essentially communicating. He has a mic on the side. He's communicating with other officers as to what he sees, anything unique, if there's any movement, if perhaps he does see somebody through the tinted windows of somebody in the back. But until we see those 4 fingers by the officers, meaning code 4, all clear, we have no idea what we're dealing with. We don't know if there is somebody in the back of that car. We don't know what kind of weapon or weapons that this suspect has at this time.
Or if they're impaired, if there's drugs involved, if they're, you just don't know.
No question. All we know is that this suspect does not want to give up. SWAT has been called out. They've got him blocked in. A perimeter has been set up. PCH is completely shut down for a couple of blocks between Prospect Avenue on the south and Palos Verdes Drive on the north. A couple schools in the area, elementary schools, Catholic schools, possibly on some modified lockdown. They've set up a perimeter and pushed people back far away that if there was an exchange of gunfire, they would be out of harm's way.
And gotten them out of their homes as well. Anything that could be touched by gunfire, that is just standard protocol. They evacuate everyone because they can't control the situation until they have the guy on the ground.
Because you can see there, these condominiums here are, maybe
right
15
there.
feet away.
Yes.
The beach cities, the South Bay, as much as Southern California, because of the prime real estate, you can shake hands with drivers going past you on the roadways or with your neighbors because of the prime property. And that's the case here. Everything's close,
You'd even
compacted.
be concerned. We're sure that law enforcement went to these condominiums and said, stay away. But there may be people just looking out their windows right there, who could be possibly in danger if shooting starts.
Yeah, and no question. And again, I'm sure these officers have done everything they can to clear the scene, set up the perimeter or the line around the area of danger, that incident point that could occur. And they continue to negotiate with this guy, and hope that they'll bring this to a safe conclusion. But as time goes on, and again, time is on the officer's side. They are being patient, but there will come a point where they're going to want to bring this to an end. And how they do it, are they going to crack through the windshield and gain entry there? Perhaps, throw some sort of incendiary device in there, bring in a canine, something to put this.
They've tear gassed them before. They can shoot a tear gas canister in and smoke them out at some point once they are certain that there's nobody else in there. And if you're just joining us, Fox 11, this is extended coverage at Fox 11 News at 10. It's now 10:37, and this police chase pursuit began 3 hours ago. About 7:40 in the morning.
It started,
3 hours ago.
The time we have is 7:40, so we're looking right now at just about exactly 3 hours.
Sheriff's Department picked up this guy, started following him at 68th and Central in South Los Angeles.
In South Los Angeles, it wound its way up to the airport, spent some time around the airport, and then into the beach cities.
Around and around the airport.
Yeah, following you, Rick, is a little bit of a geography lesson this morning. To the beach cities until we have this picture right now that has been static in quite a while. All the big guns are there. I mean, they're all set up to get this guy, but they're still being very, very patient, Rick.
They certainly are, because they want to bring this to a peaceful conclusion. They don't want to overly agitate them, although it is intimidating when you see 2 armored vehicles, 2 SWAT vehicles box you in like that with guns drawn.
It's the squeeze. It is literally the big squeeze, right? I mean,
it is.
It's got to feel. It's got to feel like a pressured situation at this point for the guy.
Yeah, I would think so, but who knows what's in this guy's head to begin with? The very beginning.
I want to show you something.
Yes, go ahead.
And I want to show you something in our picture. If we kind of tilt the camera up just a little bit and push in, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, because they were the lead agency, we'll push in right there. Those officers, we'll push in right there, are still on
here.
scene. Maybe some of the same officers that first picked up this pursuit after the incident, the strong armed robbery, the carjacking that took place near 68th and Central
But explain
perhaps
this,
at
Rick. So
7:40 this morning.
it began with the sheriff's department, who began following this guy at 68th and Central in South L.A.
All right, here we go again.
And here we
yes.
go. This is Redondo. Is this Redondo in this doing these pit maneuvers here?
Yeah, absolutely. That was all Redondo Beach. All the pit maneuvers that you saw were conducted in the city of Redondo Beach off of Broadway and over into PCH, a very
Look
busy
at that.
stretch of
40,
Pacific Coast
45
Highway.
miles an hour. We think this guy was
Pacific
going
Coast
backwards.
Highway. Backwards. He was in the right lane in that he was traveling southbound on Pacific Coast Highway in a southerly direction, but driving backwards towards officers that were essentially behind him, and that truck as well that perhaps is trying to be a good Samaritan. But again, that is not a wise thing to do ever. I need to remind everybody that if you hear lights and sirens in a situation like this, a pursuit coming up from behind you, slow down, pull over to the right, give the officers plenty of space. Don't try to be a hero because, again, you could be dealing with a carjacking suspect who has a weapon, who may try to hurt you.
Look at that. So bumper hanging off from all those attempted pit maneuvers. They were just a little too behind the wheel.
All right, there's that little pit maneuver again. That had minor impact, but keep watching here. This is the conclusion. All right, this is that situation again.
Is that PCH, Steve, right there? Right?
That is PCH. Pit maneuver on PCH, which is a dangerous proposition. We think it's over at this point. And then he starts backing away. And he continues to back away and then pick up speed as he's backing away. And then he will encounter a truck blocking the other side of the street. So at this point, he has to swerve, turn around, and start all over again. But we are really now in the final chapter at that moment, at least of the pursuit part of this.
And if we go back live, we'll see right now, we're looking at Sheriff's Department vehicles. They're still there. SWAT is there. So describe the chain of command now. So again, it started with the Sheriff's Department, Rick, but and Redondo was involved. Did other local police agencies involved through the course of the chase? But whose SWAT team is that right there?
That's Redondo Beach down below there, and Redondo Beach Police still the lead agency on this, but you can see that the Sheriff's Department, they're dressed in the tan uniforms there. We'll tilt the camera up and we'll show you, there's the Sheriff's deputies, and they patrol the community of Florence, an unincorporated area of Los Angeles County, so they do the policing there. So they were the agency, the lead agency when this pursuit first started near that intersection of 68 and Central. Whether or not the actual incident occurred there or that's where the suspect was picked up, what time the incident occurred, none of that has been ironed out as of yet. We're still trying to ascertain that information. If the assignment desk gets that for us, I know that we will relay it to you as quickly as possible. But then it was the sheriff's deputies who essentially were the lead agency on this pursuit, even though it made its way into Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, LAPD jurisdiction, down Century Boulevard. And for a time, for actually several minutes, I think you agreed, Steve and Lisa, that it looked more like a procession than a pursuit.
Yes.
It
Very
did, really.
slow moving.
It did.
Below
like a
speed limit.
funeral.
A guy was driving
So
very
slow.
safely. He was stopping at every stoplight. He would go through the red, but only when he knew the intersection was safe and there wasn't any opposing traffic. Then, once he went into the beach cities, that's where we saw other agencies pick up
and we
the
saw
deal.
him.
And
We
that
saw
was
him
Manhattan.
speed up when they finally the officers in pursuit felt like he was slowing down to the point where they could get alongside him and maybe try a pit. He saw him coming at him from the rearview mirror, and that's when he stepped on it. And
Right, and then the nature of the pursuit changed.
Right.
Up until then, it was mannerly, slow. He did open his window. He stuck his arm out the window. At that point, we thought, all right, that's a sign that it might be over soon. It wasn't.
Exactly right. And here we are on Pacific Coast Highway again. If you might just be tuning in, PCH is shut down completely for a couple blocks in Redondo Beach, as this has now become a standoff. That suspect not giving up, choosing not to listen to the instructions of the officers and the SWAT team members. There's the LA County Sheriff's deputies standing by. Perhaps some of those
is that a drone?
Is
that a drone?
That is
right
a drone
there?
up there
Yep,
now.
there
And
is.
whether or not that is a law enforcement drone or it is a law enforcement drone, we are getting confirmation that is a law enforcement drone that is being used for surveillance as well.
So how are those employed usually? I have not seen in a live pursuit a law enforcement drone.
First time.
Really?
No,
Okay,
we've
me
seen
too.
it,
I
yeah.
this is my first time. I have not seen that. And so they use that to get closer so that officers don't get in harm's way, obviously, right?
the suspect likely will not have any idea that it's anywhere near the automobile. So once it moves closer to the automobile, it's going to get a better look. It can
And
look in the
then
back
they can
seat,
maybe take
confirm,
some action.
make sure.
Right.
Make sure. See, technology is wonderful now, and this is another example of how with technology these officers are constantly trying to improve their craft of law enforcement, of engaging. And we'll come back to the suspect just to make sure that there hasn't been any
well,
action.
it's a surrogate. You know, often like a canine can be a surrogate for an officer. You know, it's a surrogate. It goes in there. It puts eyeballs on the suspect. You know, maybe get a better view to see if there's anyone in the car or not.
They are throwing everything but the canines at this moment.
Right. Well, the canines can't do anything as long as the door's closed, right? So.
The canine units have arrived actually now as well.
They
so
have.
now everything is here.
As well.
Everything's here.
You've
Wow.
got that and a drone.
At this point.
And a drone.
The only thing that may not be here is a psychologist, which sometimes they do bring in to help with the
negotiation.
With the negotiation. So we may be awaiting that as well.
I also wonder, as we're watching this, and Lisa McCree, I'm Steve Edwards, and Lisa McCree is with us today. Lisa went through the training for this. You've gone through the steps
for a piece, for a news piece, and it was, you know, you get the adrenaline pumping. You sit in a simulator and you go through one of these high-speed pursuits, and they have you going 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour. They put you all of a sudden into a neighborhood, and it feels very, very real. I mean, it's like the best video game that money can buy, and they do that so that the heart rate and the tension and the pressure the officers feel is very, very real. Because when it comes to happening in real life, they don't want the adrenaline to take over and for them not to be able to remain cool and calm and think with a clear head. It's like, quite frankly, it's like self-defense training. Yeah. You know, if you go through real self-defense training, they use really violent language. They use, you know, they want to be as aggressive as possible.
Try to get in your head as much as possible.
Right, so that you get immune to it.
And, you know, adrenaline can be a friend. And it can be an enemy.
Right.
Adrenaline can make you do things wrong, but it can also make you do things right and quicker.
Right. But in the case of a pursuit, they want these officers to be clear-headed at all times, because one wrong move and somebody can die. And so.
And people have. And right now, we don't know what's happening. You know what? It's 10:46 right now in this extended Fox 11 newscast as we cover this police pursuit, or the ending of it. Why don't we, for folks who are joining along the way and coming in and looking at this, why don't we, Rick, reset what we are seeing?
We're seeing more people being moved out of the way first. They remember all the people that were up by the fat burger there on the corner of PCH.
They're going to do something.
Pushed back
That's
well.
right. Maybe that drone that we just saw is giving them a better look. The officers a better look at what's inside that car.
And an example of how time is on their side, Lisa and Steve. They're going to clear the area. They're going to bring in all the resources, the canine, the SWAT, the drone. They're going to surveillance the car the best they can, and then they're going to make a decision how they're going to bring this to an end, because clearly it appears now that we're at 10:45. This guy isn't giving up, doesn't want to give up, so they're going to have to take some sort of action to bring this to an end. It can't go on.
It can't
forever.
go on, but let's do the reset. This started this morning. We think it's 7:40.
7:40-ish. 7:40 this morning near 68th and Central. That's where either the pursuit just started, or that's where the incident that led to the pursuit,
picked it up.
The carjacking,
yes.
The strong armed robbery. But bottom line, that's in the community of Florence, very close to the city of Los Angeles, South
Sheriff's
LA.
Department picks it up there.
Sheriff's Department picks it up there and essentially follows this guy for miles towards LAX, down Century Boulevard, for the most part from the 110 Harbor Freeway, right into the heart of LAX. He made his way on the north side of the complex, picked up Manchester, made his way through the community of Westchester, Playa del Rey, and then he took the coastal route right along the beach.
We're seeing the video now of him driving backwards after the pit maneuver, him stepping on the gas and going backwards for a little bit of a stretch right there on PCH, Rick.
Yeah, and that was just something rather remarkable, something I've
Bizarre.
never seen. And we talked about it being mostly a slow-speed procession more than a pursuit. But once he started to go backwards, that's when he was moving at the highest rate of speed, I think, for the entire pursuit, perhaps 45 miles an hour or so, down the southbound side of Pacific Coast Highway, coming away from Torrance Boulevard there in the heart of Redondo Beach, the very busy stretch of Pacific Coast Highway.
And here they bring it to an
lives
end.
Of motorists and officers, and then the pit maneuver.
Here they are getting very close to the very end of the pursuit here, where they drive him into the curb right Ah, not there. One more.
Okay, now you'll see. Oh, well, here we go again.
Yeah.
The
beginning of the end.
We get to see again the pit maneuver and then the bizarre rear end chase here for a moment.
Right, backwards in high heels.
Backwards in high heels.
Ginger Rogers pursuit this morning.
You know, the old joke about Fred Astaire did it great, but
yeah, Ginger Rogers did it backwards and in high heels. I got to tell you though, I haven't seen a guy sit in a car this long.
I have a little bit more information that I just got here about the start of the incident, and it did start as a carjacking at 68th and Gage. Now we're here, which is very close to Central, so that's just a block away. It was a strong arm robbery, but it doesn't appear any kind of weapon was used. What a strong arm robbery is, yes, weapons can be used in that case, but any type of force with your body, with your
physical
arm,
force.
You know, physical force could be used, and that may have been the case where this guy, from what I saw, looked to be a pretty big guy in this car here. Either a white or Hispanic male, shaved head, bigger dude, and he actually, could have used his bodily force to push somebody out of the automobile and take that car over. And whether or not it occurred right at 68th and Gage or the pursuit did, that's unclear at this time.
And
Bottom
what's
line,
also
that
not clear,
intersection is in Florence, and that's why the Sheriff's Department first picked it up.
Also not clear, though, even though a weapon wasn't shown when he carjacked his victim, the police and sheriffs and SWAT have no idea, really.
Always
if
assume
he has
the worst.
One. Always assume the worst. You can't have an officer walk right up to the window and say, "May I see your license?"
But
at this
meanwhile,
point.
the shot we're looking at now has been the same for the last 15, 20 minutes.
Static quo.
Yeah, the armored vehicles have been in place. So what do you think's happening, Rick?
Again, they're clearing the scene the best they can. They're widening the perimeter, the safety barrier, making sure everybody's out of harm's way, making sure all the resources that they need to bring this to an end are in place. A SWAT first, as I said, they're going to call them in, and they arrive quickly. And then the K-9 units, the drones, all the surveillance equipment they can use. That officer out of the little porthole there on the one armored vehicle there has good vision on the car. He's relaying information to the lead officers, and they're getting a game plan. And once they have that game plan and all those resources in place, they're going to make a move here. What that move will be, perhaps they'll try to break into the car with some mechanism and put some sort of tear gas, some incendiary device in there so that would force that suspect out of there. That would only occur if they are certain that nobody else, somebody innocent, might be inside that vehicle. That has to be cleared first, and once that happens, then some sort of movement will happen. But right now, they're just waiting, a waiting game. They're patient.
This is the longest.
They have the time
this is the longest in recent memory for me. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick and Steve.
We've had some, Rick, that go on and on and on and on. We're hoping that this one ends a little sooner than that, and we've also had them end tragically at the end of a long, long wait. One of the questions I raised, and I'm sure they've ascertained it, sometimes the person in the vehicle is dead.
That's possible. That's very possible. Whether or not he had a weapon to do that, that's unclear. We just don't know at this time. But if they were certain he didn't have a weapon, completely certain that car was clear of anybody except for the suspect, then I think they would have made some sort of movement by now. But they don't know that. And they don't want to put themselves in harm's way or anybody else. And that's what they're doing here in this beach community. Redondo Beach, the southern beach city here in the South Bay, and Pacific Coast Highway down below is completely shut down for a couple of blocks between Palos Verdes Boulevard on the north side and Prospect
Hey, Rick,
Avenue
let me interrupt
side.
you for a moment. We have another perspective from the ground on this. Zoreen Adamji is on the scene right now. Let's pick it up where she is. What's your perspective? Where are you, Zoreen?
So, Steve, we are actually about a block away from where all this is happening. We're on PCH and Palos Verdes right now. I can't see the car from my perspective. It's being blocked by an armored vehicle right now. But there is a huge crowd out here, as you guys have seen from the aerial views. About 50 people out here. We also have Captain Hoffman out here. What is going on right now?
Well, this is the end of a lengthy pursuit that originally involved members from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The pursuit wound through many cities throughout the Los Angeles area, and as it entered Redondo Beach, we had Redondo Beach police officers in the area that were able to provide assistance and conducted a pit maneuver, which ultimately resulted in the suspect vehicle becoming disabled at the location behind us here. The suspect is now inside the vehicle and refusing commands to exit, so we brought in some armored vehicles to make sure that the suspect vehicle could no longer continue. and we coordinated closely with the Sheriff's Department, who has sent their Special Enforcement Bureau to take over the incident and handle the barricade situation and hopefully come to a peaceful resolution.
And I hear some very loud announcements being made right now. What exactly is going on right now? What are they telling him right now?
I don't know exactly what they're telling him right now, but as we get the armored vehicles in place and the SWAT team takes over, there will be ongoing communication in an attempt to get the suspect to surrender peacefully.
Got it. Okay, we also have someone who actually saw this pit maneuver. Derek, let me bring you in really quick. So, Derek, you were actually on your way to school, I think?
Yeah, I was on my way to school because I skipped my first period, so I was going to third period, and I was coming this way, and we saw all the action coming this way and all the helicopters. We got an app on our phone that like the police use, and we heard that they were going to try another pit maneuver, so we flipped around. We're going. As we're coming this way, obviously there's a lot of traffic and a lot of cars blocking, and I see the car hit the curb. So then we pull in here, and now we were watching like the whole thing unfold there, and like all the SWAT cars come up and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
You guys don't see this very often in Redondo Beach, do you?
Never see stuff like this happen. So it's cool to see it, but it's dangerous for sure.
So Derek and about 50 other people are out here watching, videotaping, a lot of excitement out here.
Check out on Instagram, Derek.STI.
We'll keep you guys posted on what happens. But for now, we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Hey, Serene,
Steve.
it's Lisa McCree here. I saw that there were people being cleared from the corners. They cleared one corner some time ago, but then there seemed to be people on another corner that they just were letting just sort of hang out. They didn't seem to be in the way, but it looked like they were widening the perimeter. Is that what is happening? Those people right there, have they pushed them back any further?
It certainly appears that way. We actually just got on scene about 2 or 3 minutes ago. I mean, really right before you guys took us live. But I did see on the aerials that they were a lot closer, and it does seem that they're pushing us further and further back. But that's not deterring any of these guys out here. I mean, as I said, there's about 50 people out here. They don't mind that they're a little far from the scene. They're eager to see it all unfold. And we can certainly hear a lot of what's going on. We can hear those commands being given out right now. We see more armored vehicles coming in. So, you know, a lot is still unfolding, even from our vantage point right over here.
It always makes you wonder, though, when they start to widen the perimeter, is that indicative of some action that's about to be taken, you know, to getting people out of harm's way?
That could be very, very possible, yes.
I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, Zorine is there, so keep
It's really hard.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is really hard to see exactly what's happening with this suspect, so it's hard to tell if he is armed or really what his condition is right now, because he is blocked by this armored vehicle. But we have heard just continuous announcements made towards him. But again, it's really hard to hear what his condition is, or if he's posing a threat, or really what's going on from
Are you
right
able
here.
to perceive what they're saying with these announcements?
You know, they're very loud, but very muffled from this vantage point.
Captain
but
Hoffman,
we'll keep
Captain
a closer
Hoffman
ear on
just
them and
told
see if
you.
we can repeat.
Captain Hoffman just told you that they were trying to have ongoing communication because he was refusing the command to exit. So they're making the command to exit the vehicle. He's refusing to acknowledge the commands, and so that they were just trying to have ongoing communication to get him to exit. I mean, I'm guessing that they aren't going to stop talking until we see the door open.
Yeah, and, you know, from our vantage point, we will not see that door open. But, you know, even as we're speaking right now, I can hear another announcement being made. It's really hard to tell what they're saying. We can see some of these men walking back and forth, probably about at least 12 police cars, including sheriffs and LAPD,
Hey, do you see
surrounding this guy.
Do you see the drone? Do you see the drone? We saw got a really good close-up shot of the law enforcement drone that came flying over. We're guessing to get a look inside the vehicle.
Yeah, we're probably, Zorine, we probably have a better view from Sky Fox, where she's on the ground. She's getting a sense of the perimeter, the people around. She can also interview people, as you've heard, with the captain.
We actually can't see the suspect from this point, and I can't see the drone. I think that drone has actually come down. That's what my photographer here is saying. But yeah, Steve, as you said, I certainly have a really good perspective of all of this excitement. I mean, I actually grew up not too far from this area in Torrance, and this kind of stuff doesn't happen here very often. A lot of people are just, I don't know if they're taking time off of work or getting late to work, but They are really excited to see this unfold.
They're sleepy beach communities. I mean, it's sort of the definition of Redondo Beach, isn't it? I mean, this is like the kid, the high school kid who was skipping his first and second period, was always going in late today, said it was pretty cool because that stuff never happens.
It's better, as you say, better than a video game.
They are really excited, and you know what? Let me actually grab a few more people out here and just see what they have to say, because, you know, this is a really sleepy beach community. Nothing happens here very often, and you're still standing close to me. Tell me, I mean, how often does something like this happen in your area?
There was a guy that was shot over there, shot his daughter over there, you know, a couple of months back. But this intersection, you know, accidents, but whenever there's, you know, helicopters, it's always something big, you know, but not very often around here. Not very often at all.
I mean, clearly there's about 50 people out here. How long have you guys been out here?
Just before 10, when I was supposed to get to work. Saw all the news helicopters flying around, knew it was something more than just a traffic accident, you know.
So why is there still so much excitement? You guys are still standing here. You can't see that much. You certainly can't see the suspect, but there's still a crowd.
I want to see this guy get pumped full of lead. You know, seriously, this should not take this long. This guy should have been history a long time ago, you know, I mean, or, you know, don't put everybody through this.
Now, did you ever have a vantage point of him at any moment before he was blocked by that vehicle?
Oh, yeah, I was down that driveway across way over there. There was definitely, everybody was over there. Then the sheriff started backing everybody up, putting up tape and moving them off. So, you know, it's like they keep moving the perimeter back. So.
All right, Zoreen, we'll take it back here.
Really interesting.
Zoreen, stand by. We'll get back to you. We'll take you back here. You know, we expressed this earlier. I mentioned a viewer, Jerry, who said, why don't they just shoot the guy? This is what hearing expressed here. We do not, you know, obviously you want to be grown up about this. We don't want anybody shot.
Right.
We don't want anybody shot. We want this thing to end. The law enforcement has a different responsibility. They're not watching a show. Right. They're in real life.
Public safety is their job.
Not just public enthusiasm and public applauding.
Right. I'm guessing the guy who said, I want to see the guy get pumped full of lead should not go to the police academy, because I do not think that would be a good job for him. This is a different sort of goal.
I understand people's impatience.
I do too.
They're saying, why? This guy is here. He's tying up a multitude of not just vehicles and officers and agencies.
Cost.
He's closing big streets. Yeah. This is costing a lot of money. These people, these law enforcement officers, maybe should be somewhere else doing another job.
Right. Policing.
But they're here now.
But again, we cannot overstate the importance of keeping the officers out of harm's way. We have no idea what that guy has with him, what he might do, especially in this day and age. They have to prepare.
We also,
for the
Lisa,
worst.
don't know if the police right now have a book on this guy, whether they know anything about him, who he is, where he comes from. Does he have a record? Do they know of him? Does he have relatives? Is he from around here? These are all questions that they're trying to probably ferret out, and we don't know if they have those answers. Rick, you've been quiet for a while.
Yeah, those are great questions, and again, they're trying to find out as much as they can about this suspect, bring in as much in the way of resources that they need. And speaking of which, we just saw this, and Zoreen mentioned this, and she's been pushed back to a point. I saw where she was. She does not have a good visual on this, so it's difficult for her to really get an assessment from her ground shot. She's been pushed back just like the public to get out of harm's way. But there we go. This is the LA. We'll push in. This is the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. It's their SWAT team that is now on scene here as well. And this was the lead agency. These guys, they're something else. Talk about highly trained, and they're going to bring in this vehicle as well. So clearly they're waiting, as I've been mentioning, more resources. Never can have enough resources on scene.
But do you think, Rick,
a game plan, the safety, and then something's going to happen?
Yeah, but do you think watching this, from your experience in covering this, and this one's a little unusual, I have to say, but in watching this, the very fact that they're on the scene at this moment means something's going to happen?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen these enough. We see the it's artwork. It's sort of like a musical in that everything sort of comes around, comes into play. There's a process to all of this, and this is part of it, that they bring in these resources, everything that's needed, so that they know that they can bring this to a conclusion without any officers or anybody in the public being hurt. So they're going to position this vehicle right up against the other armored vehicles, and the armored individuals down below here, all the officers down below, what they have here is really something else, and just as an intimidating factor. And then you have to start to think about the suspect in the car itself. If the individual there is indeed getting to the point where, all right, I've had enough of this. Perhaps he's hungry. He may need to use the bathroom. He knows that he's surrounded with some of the most heavily armored vehicles that he's ever seen this up close and personal. He knows he's not going to get out. What his mindset is
in the age of cell phones, I would assume that he has a cell phone on him. You don't know if he might be talking to his mother or his lawyer.
No question, and there may be a dialogue with law enforcement as well, either between him and the officers or some people that know him. This has been televised across the city for hours, and we did get a pretty good glimpse of the individual. So I'm sure that there's somebody connected to this man out there that knows him, knows a bit about him, and maybe they've made contact on their own with the officers involved. Okay, so essentially what we're doing here is we're swapping out vehicles. So the Redondo Beach Police Department's pulling back because this was a sheriff's agency initiation of the incident at 68th and Gage in the community of Florence. They're pulling in here, and their vehicle.
And that's just because sheriff's was further away. So what you're saying is Redondo Sheriff's Department started the pursuit. So Redondo's SWAT team came in because the Sheriff's Department's SWAT team was too far away.
Now, I wonder, there's a black and white right there. Are they going to pull that one out and put another armored vehicle there?
Unsure about that. Because he made contact with the back of the car, they may have to leave it there for as part of the investigation. That's possible in situations like that. We'll have to wait and see. I would have thought that they would have removed that car already if they were going to.
We saw the officer leave the vehicle, didn't we? We saw the officer. There's no one in that black and white.
All those Redondo Beach patrol officers and the patrol cars backed off once those two armored vehicles from the city arrived on scene. And this is the second one. Here's the LA County Sheriff's second armored vehicle that's coming up on scene too. But we still have the one trained, the officer trained on the suspect there out of the porthole of one of the first armored vehicles that arrived.
Obviously, he's not going anywhere. I mean, he is just absolutely in a dead end. The question is, how much more patience can law enforcement show here?
Right.
When do they do something?
Fire a canister into the back windshield and smoke him out, or there are different ways they can flush him out once they ascertain that there's no one else in the vehicle. But it looks like something should be in the works because they've pushed that perimeter back.
And we have all this movement now, and you have these armored vehicles, and you have the A-team in place right now for this.
It's like SWATs, they say where you come from, not for nothing, right?
The SWAT is the best, special weapons and tactics, and they are special weapons, and highly trained officers, these SWAT officers are down below here, so that they can handle a situation like this. A standoff of this pursuit suspect that's wanted in a carjacking, a strong armed robbery. Unclear if he has a weapon. There was some talk that perhaps not, and he just used his force. He's a big guy to take over the driver of the car that he carjacked. That information still has not been confirmed at this time. But,
they always have to assume the worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And by now, perhaps, and we don't know this, but they may have the book on him. He may have a record. They may not know more about him, that he's very dangerous. Although in this situation, Rick and Lisa, if they know nothing about him, they have to assume he's very dangerous. They just have to assume that.
Absolutely. You have to in any situation. And with any stop, any random traffic stop. Mm-hmm. Any stop is not ordinary. It's not routine. You could be dealing with somebody like what we saw last week in Whittier. And that's how every officer has to handle a stop or a situation like that. From benign as a traffic stop, from somebody running through a stoplight to a situation like this. And this is a good point just to remind everybody, if you do get pulled over, these officers, they're highly trained. They're out there protecting us. If you get pulled over, pull over, hands at 10 and 2, in clear vision of the officers. Wait till they command you to unroll the window. Do what they ask you to, and do it in a very guarded and slow way, so that they know that you're on their side and you're going to cooperate with them and give them any information that they need.
Right. And watching these officers today, again, you're reminded of, how they put themselves out there day after day, night after night, and here they are having followed this guy for a couple of hours.
To protect us, to keep these bad guys off the street. This is a bad guy, allegedly. He strong-armed a person out of their car and took it. A person frightened beyond, I'm sure, possibly on their way to work or school. And he took over that individual and took their car.
So, when earlier, when the Redondo Beach SWAT vehicles had the car in sort of the vice grip, right?
Yes.
Like on either side. Did they make contact? Did that SWAT vehicle on the far side make contact, or did it stop short?
I couldn't tell if there was actually engagement at this point. It was very close. Now, watching this, you guys ask, is something getting ready to happen? Perhaps, because you can see the officers are organizing themselves. They have their weapons, all the equipment they need to possibly approach the vehicle and gain access to it to bring this to an end. They're communicating.
All right, yeah.
They've trained for this.
Rick and Lisa, what we're going to do right now is, this is a static situation. We're going to cut away from this, but we're going to continue our coverage on our website, Fox 11.
Right. Rick's going to stay in the sky.
Yeah, fox11.com. If something happens, or obviously we'll finish it for you. We'll get to it. But what we'll do is go back to regular programming right now, because Wendy is standing by.
That's right.
And waiting to continue. So we thank you for being with us. We'll see you a little later.
Can you get the license plate, Vince? All right. Go ahead there, Jeff. All right. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Is everybody still here? I can't imagine. Let's get this guy. Yeah. Oh, he's getting out. He's getting out, Vince. The door open. Tilt up. All right, suspect, if you guys are watching this online, suspect, for whatever reason, after this long standoff, is deciding to give up. He's doing exactly what he's told, even though he did it for a couple of hours. Taking off his shirt, hands up. And he's being directed by these SWAT officers. I think he was intimidated enough, perhaps getting impatient, needed to get out of the vehicle, so they are directing him to walk backwards, not facing him. We'll get in a better position here to get this, but this looks to be K-9 standing by there, as you can see. Guns drawn. The most highly trained SWAT team, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department here. And this is going to come to a conclusion, we believe, here, as this suspect that was being pursued from the community of Florence near South LA all the way to this point in Redondo Beach. And suspect is in custody. Not a code 4 yet. We're going to watch as these officers clear the vehicle, make sure nobody else is in harm's way. Not until we see 4 fingers. Code 4 will this officially be over. Suspect in custody. Bigger guy, as I had described him. A white male, shaved head, white male or Hispanic. And he's been taken into custody here in Redondo Beach on Pacific Coast Highway down below here. It looks like once the LA County Sheriff's SWAT team arrived on scene, he didn't want to have anything to do with that. So now what they're doing is they're clearing the vehicle that was pursued from Florence through South LA, over towards LAX, Westchester, Playa del Rey, into El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, and Redondo Beach, and ending here in Redondo Beach on a busy stretch of Highway 1, the highway that stretches from the southern fringes of the state all the way to the Redwood block, north and southbound sides here between Palos Verdes Boulevard and Prospect. Fortunately, coming to a successful and peaceful end. We are now in a Code 4 situation. The vehicle has been cleared. The threat is over. That man will be taken to jail. He is going to be written up on a number of violations, including the most significant, the armed robbery and carjacking, and the strong armed robbery. Whether or not a weapon was inside that vehicle, we didn't see one being taken out. One was not taken from the suspect, and he's going to be on his way to jail here. And they're going to try to clear this activity and reopen PCH as quickly as possible. All right, this is through. Thank you guys for watching on Fox 11 and our Facebook page, our website, foxla.com. We will always keep you posted on the latest happenings in the Fox 11 newsroom. For now, I'm meteorologist Rick Tickert signing off. Yeah. So that we need the fuel right now, right? Pretty much. Hey, digital team, do you guys have me? So when you guys stream, you never stream on, people were asking because they were going to foxla.com, or was it only on Facebook? Okay, gotcha. So they were looking in the wrong place. I guess they were, when they went to live newscast. We're out of fuel. We're heading to Hawthorne. You're aware this is over too, correct? Who did? What are you talking about? Yeah.